So we're live, and my name is Adam Olsen. Welcome to episode 28 of the Public Circle Live. I'm the MLA for Saanich North in the Islands. This is my weekly Facebook Live show to talk about the issues that we debated in the legislature, BC politics. Today we're going to focus a little bit more local because I've got sitting riding shotgun with me, Central Saanich Mayor Ryan Windsor. Welcome,
Hi.
Ryan.
Hi, Adam.
Hi, Adam. Ryan and I have been hanging out in politics now for how long has it been? 5 years, 6 years, 7 years?
Oh, it's probably 8 now or so.
8 years?
Well, yeah, you were on council back, 2008 to 2012, something
That's
like
true.
that.
Yeah. When did you move to Central Saanich?
It's about 10 years ago.
10 years ago, you've been in Central Saanich for 10 years, and you were a member of the public that used to come to the gallery. I remember you hanging out, and then you ran in. What was your first election that you ran in?
2011.
And that was your first run at as a councillor. Pretty
Yes.
new guy in Central Saanich too. So you did pretty well in that election.
I did better than I expected and probably better than I should have, but here I am now.
Better than you should have. Come on, go easy on yourself. And now you're my mayor.
Happy to be.
And
you're my MLA.
And acclaimed.
This time around, I was acclaimed.
How does it feel? Was it weird?
It's a bit odd, to be honest. There's always the part of us that likes to participate in the democracy, and I've done that a few times now, running in other elections. But this time around, for, I guess, a multitude of reasons, there were no opponents, and I was returned as mayor.
Well, it depends on, so this election in Saanich North in the Islands this municipal election cycle in Saanich North in the Islands was weird because in Central Saanich we had a lot of council candidates and an acclaimed mayor. In North Saanich we had just 6 council candidates and a race for mayor. Mm-hmm. And then in Sidney it was like a race for everything. And so it was a bit of an interesting municipal election, and it was. People were saying, I haven't seen your signs. And I was like, well, this is the first time that I haven't had to run for something in a long time. So I was quite happy. What does it do? We often talk about the mandate that we get through the election. How do you just... We didn't have a conversation about this before, and I'm not trying to undermine you by saying this, but what does it feel like? Because I know, you're going into a session now where you've been acclaimed as the mayor. Clearly, there was no challenger, so that has to feel, that has some of a mandate. But how does it feel?
Well, I think we have to be careful, right? We have to remember. I have to remember that there are those out there who are very supportive of me, and there are those out there who will still have a different point of view. That point of view, from my perspective and from the council perspective, needs to be heard. It needs to be understood. It needs to be addressed where we can and treated respectfully. And that is my mission more than ever. Having been acclaimed is a mixed blessing, and but it's important to remember all those facets of the job this time around, that they're as important as ever. And that is what I will encourage my council to do. I will encourage councillors and the mayors newly elected in Sidney and North Saanich to try and do the same. I'm excited. I've had conversations with some of them already and going to have more conversations because we share a lot on the peninsula, so that matters.
Actually, there is... it's interesting from my seat in the context that when I got elected, there was mayors and councils that were... you guys were in process for 2 years almost, or more than 2 years, 2.5 years. And I get elected and I get kind of dropped into the middle of it. And now I'm here as the MLA, and we've got a whole new host. So I've reached out to everybody in the riding, and there is 61 elected officials in Saanich North in the Islands. Actually, it's more than that. It's 62 because there's an MP. There's 21 mayors and councillors. There's chiefs and councils, which is about 28, I think. And then there's 12 Islands trustees and 2 CRD directors.
Yes.
for the Southern Gulf Islands. They're
Three,
all,
actually, because Mike Hicks, Juan DeFuca kind of is responsible sort of in this area.
Well, across the water. He's responsible for Willis Point, which is not in the riding, but close enough to the riding.
Interestingly
and
enough.
Mike Hicks, you can always feel his presence just nearby. So
I think Paquachin might actually get to vote for Mike as well.
why is that?
Sachem and Paquachin were divided amongst the two directors. They're not included in North Saanich.
Right.
Unlike Sartlip and Sale, which are actually inside, or we are inside, we're sort of all in one territory, if you will.
Right.
And the letters patent for Central Saanich include the Sartlip and the Sale areas, which allow them to vote in our municipal election, but that's not the norm across the province. So Paquachin and Sachem, respectively, I think vote in two different of these electoral areas.
So one for the Southern Gulf Islands and one for Juan DeFuca?
I think that's correct.
Oh, so I have to start. Mike, if you're watching, which you're probably not yet, you should be. I'll invite you to my meetings then.
Yeah.
I like Mike. Mike and I were on the Wild Salmon Advisory Council together, and I enjoy working with Mike. Want to say hello to Kathy, Aaron, Matt, Emily. Emily is my wife, and she's watching. She watches on Fridays. Hello. I'll be home soon. So just say hello to them. And so talking about public service, because you now get the chance to do it from the chair, the chair. But you've been serving the public in other ways in advance. And actually, this is how we met. We met when you had gumboots on, I think, and I was down doing my volunteering. It wasn't really volunteering; it was showing up to show support for the volunteers, which you were with Peninsula Streams. Talk about the levels of public service. I think you can get involved at the council table, but as well, there's great groups like Peninsula Streams. I've had Ian Bruce on with me. Talk about that level of community service where you started, because I think that's really where you believe it happens. I think.
We all have a passion for something in our community, whether it's youth sports or the environment in terms of Peninsula Streams and the restoration of habitat that they do, and water quality work that they do, or shorekeeping work that's kind of tangentially related to Peninsula Streams. A lot of the same individuals volunteering and putting their time in. It could be growing young farmers was an example of food growing at the school level. We're an agricultural area. People are passionate about some element of the community, and they want to be involved. And some of us will invariably be involved in these things and then see an opportunity to participate in local government to continue to affect positive outcomes in partnerships with these amazing organizations that do so much volunteer good in our community.
So Peninsula Streams, they've got a social, November 17th. Check it out on Facebook, Peninsula Streams. It's a fundraising social at the McTavish Academy of the Arts. Make sure you check that out. It's a great organization. It's where we met. You had gumboots on the first time I met you, by the way. I'm pretty sure of that. Another great organization, and tomorrow night, we were mentioning this, tomorrow night we're going to be at another event for the Saanich Peninsula Hospital and Healthcare Foundation. And healthcare is an issue that has been really a massive issue in our office over the last little while, getting doctors. You must have heard about the doctor shortage, the doctor's issue in your seat. Talk about what the Saanich Peninsula Hospital, and it's in Central Saanich, what it means to our riding and our region. The Saanich Peninsula.
Well, first of all, obviously, huge recognition to this organization, which was the Saanich Peninsula Hospital Foundation, now has included healthcare in its title, as a testament to the work that it has done for the community in terms of upgrades to our hospital. There's the volunteer board and the executive director, Karen Morgan, who's over there, who has worked tirelessly to make sure that facilities inside the hospital are top notch, and they've gone project by project by project to really make this hospital a place where, if you need to be there, no one wants to be in the hospital, but if you need to be there, it is an excellent facility, and we certainly acknowledge them for that, and we are, of course, the host municipality.
Well, and if you see their fundraising, if you see their fundraisers as what they do is basically keep the hospital as up to date as possible. And so if you can contribute, this is an organization to also contribute to, and we're going to be going to their gala tomorrow, which is their annual fundraising gala, and it's always the Saanich Peninsula Hospital is something that all of us that are elected should be absolutely fighting for, to keep up to date, to keep it, because it is the benefit to our community is to have that healthcare facility there if we unfortunately if we need it. So going back to Central Saanich, what are the things that you see coming up in the next 4 years? Because you now have a 4-year term ahead of you with a new council. What do you see are the priorities? And I recognize you have to work as a team, so these aren't necessarily going to be the things that you do, but what are your priorities as the mayor going ahead for the next 4 years in Central Saanich?
Well, we're lucky that in our case, the community largely returned the existing council. 5 of 6 incumbents were reelected, myself having been acclaimed. We have a number of things that are continuing to work in our municipality. The climate leadership plan is an enormous undertaking. This is a critical issue for us, obviously. Municipalities are only a small part of it, but we want to do our part in concert with the provincial government, the federal government, organizations like the Union of BC Municipalities and the Federation of Canadian Municipalities to effect change, positive change in terms of emissions, so that we are far more sustainable. We've been recognized at Tier 4 by, I think it's the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, with our climate leadership plan. And I was just talking to staff today about upcoming events and where we are, and the materials that will be prepared and the plans that will be prepared to implement that, and then start to change where our emissions are coming from and reduce them even further.
What kind of emissions what people might not? What is it? What emissions does a municipality create?
Well, other than political emissions.
Well, arguably that's ongoing.
That's ongoing. That's something that happens, and a little joke, of course. But the transportation sector, as it were, and obviously we use trucks and equipment to effect a lot of what we do, whether it's in the public works yard, and therefore that's much like we see across the capital region. A big emitter. Obviously buildings, the older a building is, the more potential there is for producing emissions as a result of the energy that's used to heat the building, light the building, and that kind of thing. So, and we have some older buildings in Central Saanich. Our municipal hall is 60 plus years old at this point. And we have the new fire hall, of course, which I think achieved LEED Gold. I think you were on council when the decision was made. So
I don't take any credit.
Well, I mean,
I take 1/7 of the credit.
1/7 of the credit. It's a team effort, but it's an achievement.
Yeah, and so is there any account in that part of that plan? Do you account for the emissions that your citizens produce, or is that different?
Well, the municipality obviously can't take on individual homeowners.
They have buildings.
They have buildings, right? And so the municipality is looking at it from the point of view of what we own and operate. And then we could incentivize, I know other municipalities in the past where funds have been available have tried to leverage funds from other levels of government. There was Solar Colwood at one point that was actually providing some incentive to homeowners to install solar. There are a lot of municipalities across Canada, and we try and compete for those, and part of our climate leadership plan will certainly look at that going forward. But at this time, we're focused on obviously our own emissions, reducing them.
Where does Central Saanich? One of the things that we're looking for and is around sea level rise, and Central Saanich is entirely surrounded by, well, arguably on the north and the south it's not, but on the east and the west it's surrounded by water. Is there any activity within the climate strategy around that sea level rise, or is that a different program? It's something that's come to me, right? So
There is and there isn't, and I understand North Saanich has done some work on some vulnerable areas. We've identified some vulnerable areas along with the CRD. There's some mapping data. Island View Beach was one area that was identified as highly at risk. It's obviously been seasonally inundated in the past by storm surges, king tides, with consistent sea level rise. You know, you do start to see a potential impact there, a half meter, a meter, which are, you know, very realistic estimates for sea level rise in the coming years. It obviously will impact that area. There are a modest number of homes. There's some farmland down there. Obviously, erosion's a factor too. So, in partnership with the CRD, we're going to continue to work on that as well. And that's kind of the adaptation versus mitigation file.
Well, this is something that I think where we're going to be having the conversation at the municipal, provincial level is how does the province and the federal government get involved in helping the people on the ground, the municipalities on the ground, adapt to these big challenges, and how does a municipality work with its citizens to help them adapt, like at that property by property scale, right? So this is where I think that I don't think that we talk enough about the need for communities. There was a comment that was made earlier about collaboration. This is collaborating not just between local governments here on the peninsula, but collaborating between all levels and all jurisdictions. It's not just the CRD; it's the provincial government, it's the federal government, and then we have to have the conversation with each and every one of those property owners that are going to be impacted by it. There was a question from Clayton about expanding recreation facilities in Central Saanich. So, do you have any plans for expanding recreation? I kind of know do you have any plans for expanding recreation in Central Saanich?
This is certainly on our radar. We look at a wildly successful facility in Panorama Rec Center, well run. This is a CRD service that's managed locally by the Peninsula Recreation Commission, of which I've sat on. And we've had a number of discussions, and I can say emphatically, yes, it does absolutely register on our radar as a high priority. Right. It's about the when and the where. Obviously, things like a weight room are a huge asset. The one in Panorama is well used, probably for the peninsula now a little bit on the small side. So a lot of users, I think 40% of the users are coming from Central Saanich. So it does make sense. And on a go-forward basis, again, we were going to try and do this. I know the federal government has got some money available for expanded recreation and health. So we'll look at strategic opportunities and try and make this happen.
So as one of the parents of the and what I was alluding to is I'm a parent of two baseball players actually. One of the things that the municipality's done a really good job of, first with the Boys and Girls Club at the library facility or the cultural building in Brentwood Bay, but now with Central Saanich Baseball, Central Saanich Little League, where there's an expansion there of a field house kind of set up.
Right. So the open air batting cage
right.
that was present in Centennial Park was sort of a fenced off area, and it was relatively modest in it. What it allowed for is now being transitioned after it was destroyed, unfortunately, by some snow. I think it was a couple of years ago, which is unusual around here. But it has been brought forward. Councils supported that with some money that came from various sources, including I think some reimbursements for the facility damage that occurred. And Central Saanich Little League has done a great job of fundraising, and the municipality again likes to be partners with these organizations. We've seen that over and over again. The stage in Pioneer Park, another one. So we've produced a lot of recreational facilities, which we've leveraged partnerships with, whether it's senior governments or outside organizations, where we want to be effective and positive in our partnerships.
I should have seen this coming, Clayton. Clayton has been, I think, throwing discs around in disc golf for about 100 years. Not to age you at all, Clayton, but any chance of a disc golf facility in Central Saanich? And this is just an old friend of mine who has jumped on today. Any talk about a disc golf facility?
So it is a great question, Clayton. I can say we've talked to Lacrosse in the past about their facility, but to date, no, there hasn't
Clayton,
been.
you got to go to Central Saanich Council and you've got to advocate on behalf of your sport, Clayton. Thank you for jumping on today and asking the question. And but you can go to the council chamber and ask them if there's a place for disc golf. Robin asks about an evacuation plan in the event of forest fires. Wildfire issues, of course, are something that we are dealing with on a regular basis at the provincial level. But there's also the local planning. I know that CRD does some local planning on this, and then some inter-municipal or some cross-jurisdictional issues around it, primarily on Mount Newton or Clayton would be where we're looking. But what level of what level of interaction do you guys have at Central Saanich on that?
Well, obviously, our new fire chief, Chris Rabel, has a lot of experience in this 25 plus years of experience that we just acknowledged. Actually, the province acknowledged and awarded him 25 years of service. He's got some experience in terms of interface fires, and the risk areas in Central Saanich are few and far between. You identified one on Clayton, and the rest of the municipality. The canopy is very difficult to actually get burning. Right. That isn't to say it's impossible, but the risk is identified on the lower end of the spectrum. We've got a lot of obviously cleared land for agricultural purposes. So in order for fire to spread, you need that kind of continuous fuel source. And we don't see a lot of that. So I'm not saying it's not there, but in terms of priorities, there's other things in our emergency plan that are higher. We've identified as higher. We have a very thorough emergency plan. Actually, it was almost a little too thorough. I think they took some stuff out that really wasn't relevant. Right. But staff have done an excellent job of bringing this together. Our EOC and our fire hall obviously are ready to go. We do drills on that. I've participated in one if there was a major emergency, even beyond fire. So I'm confident in the plans that we have, but I don't mind these inquiries to test us.
Well, I think so. We did the great shakeout. Everybody was shaking last week, I think it was. Mm-hmm. We found out that basically, if the earthquake happened when we were in the legislative building, that it would just fall on everybody. So that doesn't make me feel very safe in that building, to be honest with you. Big giant rocks. But we did the exercise, and I'm happy to say that while we were in the midst of doing the exercise, my cell phones, both of them, were blowing up because Central Saanich and the Saanich Peninsula's emergency system was notifying me that we were having an earthquake, or that it was just an emergency drill, basically. Yeah. So I'm very happy to say it worked. I think you got that?
We did a test of the system that we employ collectively with Sidney and North Saanich, and in fact, people were saying they were getting alerted on multiple devices. There were a few quirks in the system, maybe with some strange phone numbers and the like, but and some feedback on the system, but relatively minor. The fact is, people were obviously being informed, which is the goal. And it's one way that we can help people become aware. It's not the only way. Obviously, technology is not always the solution that will work in every emergency. So we have other solutions at hand, but we wanted to test that one, and it seems to work.
Worked out just well. Very well. Thank you for that. And another question, this one from Kyle, about a bike or a skate park, noting that the municipality does not have one. And are there any plans for a bike park or skate park in Central Saanich?
We did a couple of years ago explore this and went down a bit of a path, again, leveraging partnerships and funding. There were some organizations that were looking for some sizable grants from the co-op and the like, and we thought we were going down a path, but at the end of the day, it wasn't successful. That doesn't mean it's off our radar, but like with disc golf and lacrosse, we obviously have a lot of demands on our time, and we want to make sure that we do things well. So that means prioritizing, and we may end up selecting a particular sport to get new facilities based on the likelihood of use and demand, right?
I think it just really highlights that there is so many interests, and like, this is our job, folks. I mean, you're just seeing the job. I'm putting you're dropping this into the comment section, and I'm putting Ryan on the spot. But I could just as easily. I mean, you could just, why don't you spin it around on me? Say, hey, Olsen, when are you going to come to the table with money for recreation? I mean, that is really what it comes down to, is that there are so many requests and only so much resource to spread around. And this is really what the job is. I mean, it's the job that we've asked for, but it's the job that we have. And when you sit at the council table, or when, oh, hey, look, there's Helen. Who's that? Oh, that's Helen. That's Ryan's wife. You should say hi to Helen.
Hello, Helen.
Anyway, that is the challenge that we have, is you have to make the decisions, and there is an insatiable appetite for all sorts of recreation facilities, whether it be disc golf or skate parks. And we were talking about skate parks when I was on Central Saanich Council, and there's just a beautiful skate park that's been built in Sidney, a phenomenal skate park. And certainly the skateboarders in Central Saanich are going to say, but it's a long way away. And so that takes me to an issue that I heard come up during the Central Saanich Council debates, and this is something in which you could spin right back around on me, and we should probably have a discussion about, and that's transportation and transit. It was clearly an issue. It wasn't just the council candidates that were bringing it up. It was definitely both of our constituents were bringing this up as a fundamental challenge that Central Saanich residents face, and that's access to good quality transit, good quality transportation that's not single occupant vehicles. I mean, it was really quite encouraging, but it's also the challenge of how do we get a community like Central Saanich properly serviced with transit. And I don't know that either of us I mean, I think we do have an answer. We have to build transit. But anyway, we have to build transit.
Well, and within transit, we've also got to keep an eye on where we are succeeding. There are buses out there already. They're diesel buses. I'd like to see them be electric. So it's sort of, do you add more buses that are electric and keep the diesel buses that are on the road? Do you replace the diesel with electric? Obviously, if you want to expand transit service, you're not going to be taking buses out of service. But connecting the peninsula to Victoria and connecting it with itself, again, is whether it's the facilities or the transportation, you've got to make sure that the routes that you're servicing are ones that are going to be heavily utilized. You want to have success. You want people to say, I'm going to get on that bus because it's going to get me to where I need to be. And so we need to constantly be challenging ourselves about what's the most effective. Because I might say in my neighborhood, I need another bus, but it might actually be that in another neighborhood, that bus could do more.
That's right. And you know what? It's youth, it's seniors, it's the business owners, and it is the business community in Saanich North and the Islands. It's the business community in the Keating Business Park, or in Brentwood Bay. There's a tech company that was asking for more bus service. Clearly, there's a desire for it. And what I would say to this is that actually, people say what comes first, right? What comes first is more buses. If you provide more access to transit, so more buses, increasing the frequency, increasing the places where they go, the geographic range of those buses, then people will take that bus. Mm-hmm. If you're in your car alone and you see the bus drive by you, that will encourage you to be on the bus. And unfortunately, the situation that we have right now is that there isn't the level of funding to put the number of buses. So that's the provincial side of the equation, but I heard it loud and clear, and I couldn't pass this chance where we're talking away to say that I heard that, and it's something that I think that you and I will, and your council and I will be working with the Minister of Transportation, because it's not just in Central Saanich, it's in North Saanich, it's in Sidney, it's the entire Saanich Peninsula that could be much better serviced in a much more efficient way than I think is being serviced right now. So we'll have those conversations as we go ahead. So we're going to wrap it up. This is Ryan Windsor. I'm Adam Olsen. This is the episode 28 of the Public Circle Live. I always forget to remind people what they're doing when they're here. But anyway, I got one more question for you, and it's I was reading the newspaper, and your name came up. Your name came up as a potential candidate for chair of the CRD. So what's up with that? Are you gonna throw your name in the ring?
I am exploring a run for chair of the CRD, and this involves obviously directors making a decision as to what they want to see on a go-forward basis. It's a one-year mandate. Right. It's renewed annually under the terms in which all regional districts operate. And I spent the last 4 years as Central Saanich's representative to the regional district. There's 24 of us, a lot of important services. There's a lot of good things the CRD does, and then there's a lot of things that we've seen the CRD stumble on, and the public's had some concern about that. So we need to, on a go-forward basis, have somebody in that chair who can communicate effectively the roles and responsibilities that the regional districts plays. There's a lot of things that we couldn't do on our own without the regional district, and but we can always do better. So I want to strike that balance, and I'm hoping that the directors will see me as a very good choice for the regional district chair position, because we are the second largest regional district in the province, so this is not a job to be taken lightly.
It's I don't know that a lot of people understand just how much impact that the CRD, they hear about the CRD, but I don't know that they know just how much impact the CRD has in the daily lives of people in the capital region. Mm-hmm. I was at an event at Royal Roads, and they had a list of all of the commissions and committees and that the CRD either manages or maintains. And that list, it was an impressive list that the administration keeps straight. You know, everything from sewer to water to parks to local area commissions in and around the Southern Gulf Islands and around. So it's a big job. It's a huge responsibility, and not one to be taken lightly. So congratulations on making the decision to put your name forward, and good luck. I mean, it's quite a process from what I hear to get elected. It's an election within an election, really, mm-hmm. and a lot of work in a lot of phone calls probably in your near future.
If I'm successful, I think the number of emails that I receive will definitely increase from all those services, whether it's here on the peninsula, Panorama Rec, and the wastewater treatment facility that we are very fortunate to have that serves the three municipalities. We made that decision 20 years ago. The Southern Gulf Islands, out in the West Shore, there are various things that happen, and in the core, obviously, the core area wastewater continues to evolve and will eventually be an operating facility. So, yeah. I would be very, very busy, but I think I'm in a position that I'm ready to do the job.
Cool. Well, the Saanich Peninsula has had the most recent chair, outgoing mayor of Sidney, Steve Price, was the chair. Mm-hmm. And then in 2011, former mayor of Central Saanich, Alistair Bryson, was the chair of the CRD. So, you know what? We're not. It's not foreign to us to have chairs. So the best of luck in that election, and a lot of work working the phones to talk to your directors to talk to them about what you bring to the table. So that's good, and congratulations on making that decision. Thank you so much for hanging out today. One final thing before we go off to our weekends, and that is we should celebrate what's going on in the park in Brentwood in Pioneer Park. Mm-hmm. Another one of those collaborative efforts between the district council, the one that you were the mayor of throughout this process, to build a brand new performance stage in Pioneer Park. And now I see, as I go through my morning walks, a cenotaph. Mm-hmm. So talk about that process because we are now coming up to November 11th. I'm happy I can't wait to be there in Central Saanich for the Remembrance Day ceremonies, but talk about the process to get a new cenotaph in Pioneer Park.
Well, we had the involvement of a lot of people in our community, very passionate about the idea of having a memorial, a place to recognize those who served this great country of ours, and who lost their lives or came back with wounds of their own.
Casualties.
Casualties, but also mental health, right?
Right.
The trauma of conflict is very real. And the Legion, we see them working out in the community every day to obviously help address that. A cenotaph is a place of reflection. It's a place to acknowledge those sacrifices and to think about peace. Peace is doesn't matter what community you are in the world or what conflict we're talking about. People often think about the Great Wars, World War I, World War II, but so many other conflicts, regional, local, and international, that have happened. And this is a place for all of those conflicts to be acknowledged and to think about not repeating those and to instead celebrate peace. I believe there's going to be a piece, hopefully, from Sartlip or Saout on the cenotaph, because obviously this territory is shared amongst Saanich and settlers, as it were, and we want to acknowledge that peace is peace anywhere in the world, right? But it's local at its foundation, and I think that is something I look forward to. So we'll see that I'm not sure we'll have that in place for this year's Remembrance Service, but it's definitely a piece to come. So that'll be good.
Well, Central Saanich has had a growing Remembrance Day ceremony. I think that the Remembrance Day ceremony for the peninsula Sidney's always done a really good job, and there's been a growing Remembrance Day ceremony at the cenotaph at the municipal hall, or at the flag. Was there a cenotaph there? There wasn't, was there? It was just flags, and
there's a peacekeeper stone embedded underneath the flags, and that was sort of considered the piece that people used as a monument. But this is more of a more traditional cenotaph monument.
That's right. So, congratulations to that, and yes, Robin, thank you so much. Thank you to all of the amazing residents in Brentwood Bay, and as you pointed out, the Tidman family, John Tidman, the amazing business community, not just in Brentwood Bay, the amazing business community in Central Saanich and beyond, actually, that put a considerable amount of resources and personal effort and personal resources on the line to build that performance stage. It has been the host, and Pioneer Park has been the host of Music in the Park for I don't know how many years. What? Maybe, feels like almost a dozen years.
I think, something like that.
And they've always it was on like a plywood platform up until this year, and it's so nice to see that Music in the Park, which so many hundreds of Brentwood Bay residents and people from actually all over the peninsula come. Great music there in the summertime. And actually, I've been having the conversation. I would love to see theater in the park. I've had this idea of having political discussions, political speeches in the park where we bring, I'm not going to go there yet because I've got some ideas and I don't want to throw it out there and then have to chase it down. But I have some ideas about having political leaders come and meet with constituents in the park. There's so many uses for that stage, and it's a beautiful facility. For those of you who haven't seen it, go to Pioneer Park, right in the heart of Brentwood Bay. Do a little shopping while you're there. Anyway, thank you so much for joining me today, Ryan. I know it was just a couple of days ago that I said, hey, will you join me on Friday afternoon, and you took me up on the offer. I really appreciate it. All the best in the coming term as our mayor. And I look forward to working alongside you. The best of luck in your election, go. I guess you didn't have an election, so now you get an election for the CRD chair. So you get to experience an election.
Someone asked me if that was why I was doing it.
No, it's of course not why.
No, it's not.
But all the best in that, and thank you for serving our community. And I look forward to working with you over the next little bit.
And I look forward to working with you, Adam. And thank you for serving us as MLA.
Cool. Thanks a lot for joining us. This has been episode 28 of the Public Circle Live. Whether you're watching us live or you're watching us in a rebroadcast, leave a comment. I usually show up after the fact and answer any of the comments or questions that are left. Thank you to those who joined us live, and thank you to those that are watching a rebroadcast. We'll be back again, same time, same place, Facebook at 4:30 on Friday next week. I think it's November 3rd. And next week I'll be talking on the transportation issue with Emily de Rosenroll from South Island Prosperity, and we will be talking about their mobility initiatives in the capital region, but also on the Saanich Peninsula. So check us out next week, 4:30, Friday, on Facebook. Thanks for joining us. Until then, Haekwa.